Most people believe that a neglected plant is a dying plant. They think if you skip the watering, forget the fertilizer, and never repot, eventually the plant gives up. But the people who keep the same plants alive for 20 years know something which they learned the hard way. Some plants did not evolve to be cared for. They evolved in seasonal drought, thin rocky ground and deep forest shade, where nothing is as expected. For those plants, attention is the danger. The watering can has killed far more of them than any holiday ever did. The 10 plants here are the most reliable of that group, and the plant in the number 1 position breaks the rule that every other plant on this list follows. It stores no water at all, no swollen base, no thick leaves, no underground reservoir, and it will still be standing in a room where every other plant here would be dead inside a season. If this is the kind of knowledge you like to have, hit the subscribe button so you know when next I share garden-saving tips. Let us begin. Number 10. Orpine. If you saw orpine in a garden center in early spring, you would walk straight past it. There is almost nothing above the ground to look at. Orpine depends on you for nothing. While other perennials demand water, feeding, and staking all summer, it runs on reserves buried long before you arrived. Its name is Hylotelephium telephium, sold for years as sedum telephium. Expect a clump around 2 feet tall, hardy through USDA zones 3 to 9. Below the soil it grows thick, carrot-shaped storage roots. In a severe drought, 1 deep soak every 3 or 4 weeks is plenty. In an ordinary summer, nothing at all is plenty. The most common mistake people make is planting orpine into good soil. Rich, fertilized ground results in tall stems that flop open by midsummer and crowns that rot over winter. So do this instead. Give it the poorest, grittiest corner you own. Here is the technique that proves how tough it is. Lay a single healthy leaf on gritty compost and walk away. Orpine leaves can regenerate complete new plants on their own. Orpine does not perform for attention. It stores what it needs, waits out the worst, and returns without any intervention. Number 9. Adam's Needle Yucca. Adam's needle has spent decades being mistaken for something it is not. People see the sword-shaped leaves, decide it belongs in a desert, and never plant it. They're wrong. It was built for the sites gardeners give up on. Dry banks, gravel, poor sand, salt wind. It does not merely tolerate those places, it prefers them. Yucca filamentosa grows wild from West Virginia south through the southeastern United States, on dunes and dry open fields. It forms an evergreen rosette 2.5 to 5 feet across, then throws a flower spike up to 6 feet. It is far more cold hardy than the look suggests, and once rooted it needs no water beyond rainfall. The most common mistake is kindness at planting time. In rich soil, compost in the hole and routine watering all produce crown rot. So do this instead. Plant it into unimproved ground and leave the hose in the shed. The insider move is to let the clump pay for itself. Mature plants throw offsets around the crown. Lift them in spring and replant them, and you have your next 3 plants for free. Yucca is toxic to dogs and cats, and the leaf tips are sharp. Some plants survive hardship. Adam's needle looks its best in it. Number 8. English lavender. Lavender is not a short-lived plant. It is simply planted in the wrong ground by people who then blame it for dying in its 3rd winter. The neglect lavender needs is a specific kind, not neglect of water, neglect of generosity, no feeding, no rich compost, no fussing. Lavandula angustifolia comes off the sunny, stony ground of southern France. It wants around 6 hours of full sun as a working minimum, and forms an aromatic mound 1 to 3 feet high. In freely drained soil, established plants often take winter lows of roughly 5 to 14 degrees Fahrenheit. Water it through the first season, then only in real drought. The most common mistake is drowning it with kindness. Heavy clay, mulch against the crown, an evening sprinkler, and a handful of fertilizer each shorten its life. So do this instead. Plant it slightly proud of the soil, work grit into the hole, and keep mulch off the stem. The insider technique is the after-flowering trim. Clip the mound back lightly once the flowers fade, but never cut into old leafless wood. Lavender will not resprout from bare stems. It is toxic to cats and dogs. Lavender does not ask for care. It asks for drainage, and it never forgives the lack of it. Number 7. Rosemary. If lavender is grown for the scent drifting off the border, rosemary earns its place twice, once outside and once on the plate. It belongs here for the same stubborn reason as lavender. It came from stony hillsides where the summer rain simply stops, and it never learned to expect better. Rosemary is now classified as Salvia rosmarinus, after generations as Rosmarinus officinalis. It grows wild from Spain through North Africa to Turkey. Depending on cultivar, it forms an upright or trailing evergreen shrub, 18 inches to 6 feet tall. Most forms suit USDA zones 8 to 10, and prolonged freezing is often fatal. In a rainless summer, one deep soak every 2 to 4 weeks is more than enough. The most common mistake is buying an unnamed supermarket plant in a cold region and expecting it to overwinter outside. So, do this instead. Choose a proven hardy cultivar or use a movable pot and shelter the root ball, because a frozen pot kills faster than frozen air. The insider technique costs nothing. Harvest is the pruning. Take sprigs all season and clip lightly after flowering, and you will never need to cut into old bare wood, which rosemary rarely recovers from. It is non-toxic to dogs and cats. Rosemary asks for sun, sharp drainage, and a sharp pair of scissors. Everything else is interference. Number 6. Yarrow. If your soil is thin, dry, compacted, and frankly poor, yarrow may be the plant you have been looking for. It does not need improving. It needs leaving alone. Yarrow treats hardship as an ordinary day. Deep fibrous roots, spreading rhizomes, and finely divided leaves, let it grow where most perennials sulk or die. Achillea millefolium is native across temperate Eurasia, with closely related populations right across North America. It grows 1 to 3 feet high and about as wide, hardy through USDA zones 3 to 9. Once established, extra water is normally unnecessary. Even in a long rainless heat wave, a deep soak every 2 to 3 weeks is ample. The most common mistake is a good garden. Rich, moist, well-fed soil produces tall stems that split open the moment it rains, and shade cuts the flowering right back. Do this instead. Plant it into your worst sunny soil and stop watering after the first season. The insider technique controls the one real risk, which is spread. Once a year, push a sharp spade straight down all the way around the colony to sever the rhizomes at the edge. 2 minutes, and a generous plant never becomes a bully. Yarrow is toxic to dogs, cats, and horses. Yarrow does not reward good soil. It rewards low expectations, which is a rarer and more useful thing. Number 5. Ponytail palm. Look at the base of a ponytail palm before anything else. That swollen elephant-footed trunk is not decoration. It is why this plant can be forgotten for a month and never notice. It solved the problem of unreliable water long before it reached a windowsill. It does not need you to remember. It already stored the answer. Despite the name, Beaucarnea recurvatus is not a palm at all. It belongs to the asparagus family, and it comes from the dry country of Veracruz and Oaxaca in Mexico. Indoors it grows slowly, reaching 5 to 8 feet over many years. Water deeply, then let the pot dry almost completely. In practice, that means checking every 3 to 6 weeks, and less in winter. Keep it above about 50 degrees Fahrenheit. The most common mistake is planting it too deep. Bury that swollen base, and it sits in damp compost until it collapses. So do this instead. Keep the base above the compost line and never let the pot stand in water. The insider technique is restraint. Do not cut the crown off to control height. There is one growing point per rosette, and removing it does permanent damage. It is non-toxic to cats and dogs. The ponytail palm is the perfect plant for people who travel. It has been packing for a long journey its entire life. Number 4. Jade plant. Everyone who has killed a succulent on a bright windowsill deserves a second chance, and the jade plant is the one that gives it. It is almost impossible to kill by forgetting. Jade stores water in every part of itself. Thick leaves, thick stems, and photosynthesis that limits water loss during the day. Absence is not the threat here. Routine is. Crassula ovata comes from the dry eastern side of South Africa. In pots, it is usually kept under 3 feet. In active growth, it needs water perhaps every 2 to 4 weeks, and very little through winter. Aim for 50 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, because frost bursts those water-filled leaves. The most common mistake is watering by the calendar instead of by the plant, so do this instead. touch a leaf first. If it is firm and glossy, the plant is fully charged and watering adds nothing but risk. Wait until the leaves soften slightly. The insider technique is how you multiply it. Break off a stem and leave the cut end in dry air for several days until it forms a callus. Only then push it into gritty compost. Skipping that is why most jade cuttings rot instead of rooting. Jade is toxic to dogs and cats. The jade plant does not need a caretaker. It needs a bright window and someone with the discipline to walk past it. Number 3. Snake plant. At night, while the house is asleep, the snake plant is doing something almost nothing else in your home is doing. It is breathing on a completely different schedule in order to save water. That is why it sits this high. Its resilience is not just thick leaves. It is a different metabolism, evolved for water that arrives in bursts and then disappears for months. Dracaena trifasciata, still sold everywhere as Sansevieria trifasciata, is native to west-central tropical Africa. Most forms stand 18 inches to 3 feet tall, and indoors they often want water only every 3 to 5 weeks. The mechanism is crassulation acid metabolism. It opens its pores at night when the air is cool, then seals them shut all day. The most common mistake is a splash of water every week just to be safe. That produces soft, mushy leaf bases that pull away at the soil line. Do this instead. Push a finger deep into the pot and water only when the dryness reaches well below the surface. The insider technique is matching the cultivar to the light you have. In a dark room, choose a plain green form over a heavily variegated one. Green leaves carry more photosynthetic tissue, so the plant earns more from less light. It is toxic to cats and dogs. The snake plant is proof that survival is not about effort, it is about timing. Number 2. ZZ plant. The ZZ plant will not tell you when it is thirsty. It will not droop, it will not wilt, it will not drop a leaf in protest. That silence is the whole point. It sits at number 2 because it takes the two things that kill houseplants most often: drought and darkness, and shrugs off both. Zamioculcas zamifolia runs from Kenya south to KwaZulu-Natal, in habitats that dry out seasonally every year. It reaches 2 to 4 feet high and wide, and it grows very slowly. In an average home, it wants water only every 3 to 5 weeks, and monthly or less in winter. Underground it holds fat, potato-like rhizomes, and in severe drought, it can drop its entire canopy and resprout from those reserves. The most common mistake is the just-in-case watering, usually into a decorative outer pot, that quietly holds an inch of standing water. So do this instead. Use a pot with an open drainage hole and empty the outer container every time. The insider technique is a wooden skewer. Push it deep into the compost, then pull it out. Clean and dry means water thoroughly. Dark and damp means check again next month. The tissues carry irritating calcium oxalate crystals, so keep it away from pets and children. The ZZ plant never complains, which means it will never ask you for anything it does not actually need. Number 1. Cast iron plant. Every plant so far has followed one rule: store water, then live off the store. The cast iron plant stores nothing. No swollen base, no succulent leaf, no reservoir. By the logic of this entire list, it should not be here at all. It is here because it survives the neglect that actually kills houseplants, which is not thirst, it is darkness. Aspidistra elacior comes from the shaded understory of southern Japan, where almost no direct light reaches the ground, and it built its whole strategy on slowness instead of storage. It is one of the very few houseplants that genuinely persists in a north-facing stairwell, a hallway, or a room with one small window. It forms a slow evergreen clump 20 inches to 3 feet tall, prefers cool conditions of roughly 40 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and will sit happily root-bound for years. Here is the mistake that catches everyone who watched this whole video. Do not treat it like the succulents. It has no reserve, so months of bone-dry compost bring brown tips, folded leaves, and lost foliage. So, do this instead. Check it every 2 to 4 weeks, and water thoroughly once the top third of the compost has dried. The insider technique takes 2 minutes. Wipe the broad leaves with a damp cloth a few times a year. In a dark room, a film of dust is a real tax on the little light there is. It is also non-toxic to cats, dogs, and horses, the safest plant in this countdown. The cast iron plant has no reserves and no defenses. It simply refuses to be in a hurry, and that turns out to be the strongest survival strategy of all. Neglect is not the opposite of care. For these 10 plants, it is a form of care, because they were shaped in places where help never came, and they learned to need nothing. Here is the one thing to do tonight. Lift every pot out of its decorative outer container. If water is sitting in the bottom, pour it out. That single check will save more plants than any watering schedule ever will. The best plants in a home are not the ones that get tended the most. They are the ones that had already finished growing up before they ever arrived. So leave a comment and name the one you are starting with, and be specific about where it is going. If it is indoors, say which direction your window faces. If it is outdoors, say your growing zone. That detail decides whether the plant lives, and it is the one most people skip. And if you want more plants that ask almost nothing from you, subscribe, because that is exactly what this channel keeps digging up.